to the northeast, there is a chance of a shower. That's going to increase quite a little. Potentially an odd heavy shower is possible there as well, though it will remain mostly dry for most people. And it's a similar picture as we move across the north and into southern Scotland. Mostly dry with sleet spells, but there is expected to be an occasional heavy shower, particularly in the east. In Northern Ireland, it's going to be mostly cloudy with the best of the brighter spells, likely in the east of the province. Outbreaks of locally heavy rain, though, will slowly edge across eastern areas, and the rain, when it clears, it'll develop showery spells over northern England and northern Wales. But elsewhere, most of us at least should remain dry throughout the night, and the weather shaping up into tomorrow morning.
Tonight on GB News, at 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, what a fabulous, fabulous day. I mean, today marks the start of the Platinum Jubilee, and the Queen is the longest reigning monarch this country has ever had. Now, she has travelled to more countries than any other monarch in the world, and during her reign, she's had some great times welcoming all her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and thankfully, at last, Lilibet. So is she the best monarch ever? The royal family has also had to field a lot of nonsense from the press, as we know. Whilst the Queen's copybook has been impeccable, others haven't been so lucky. There was, of course, the late Princess Diana, who had a very difficult time. Fergie, who couldn't do anything right in their eyes. Camilla, at one point the most hated woman in Britain after getting together with Charles following the death of Diana. And Meghan, who was not happy with the treatment she was given, so fled stateside with Prince Harry for privacy. I promised to play nicely today. It is the Jubilee. So are royals fair game when it comes to the press? And what about the Commonwealth countries that the Queen currently heads? There was that disastrous tour that William and Kate went on around Jamaica, where they were received pretty badly, and now Australia are talking about removing the Queen as head of state. So will the Jubilee bring the Commonwealth back together, or is it last orders? Plus, we'll be out and about taking a peek into your celebrations. After all, we are GB News, the People's Channel. But first, here's the headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour, as you've been hearing, the first of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations have been taking place today. Her Majesty the Queen, joined by members of the royal family, watching the flypast from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. The Royal Air Force jets flying in formation in the number 70 to mark the number of years of Her Majesty's reign over the United Kingdom. Also in the skies today, the famous red arrows taking part in the display as well, streaming the Union flag colours in smoke above Buckingham Palace. And royal gun salutes also taking place across the country as part of celebrations. Millions of people across the nation have been sending their best wishes to the Queen.
We do it really well in Britain, don't we? Nobody like us Brits can put on a show. It was amazing, absolutely amazing.
I was going to say the music for me, the band was probably my number one. But I did have a glimpse of Princess Anne on her horse as well.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you saw Princess Anne, didn't you?
Oh, it was just lovely. And then there was all the carriages with Kate and Camilla and all those. It was just lovely, wasn't it? Yeah. We're so glad we came. We ummed and ahed, but it was a lot of hard work to get here and so busy, but worth every minute, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well, President Biden and the First Lady have wished Her Majesty a joyful Platinum Jubilee celebration, and they've thanked her for her friendship to the American people.
Your Majesty, congratulations on your Platinum Jubilee. For 70 years, you've inspired people with your selfless devotion and service to the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth.
Throughout the years, the joy your visits to the United States have brought Americans and your solidarity with the American people in times of tragedy have deepened the friendship and profound connection between our countries.
On behalf of the people of the United States, we send you our best wishes to you and the people around the world marking this momentous and historic occasion.
Well, the Duke of York will miss tomorrow's Jubilee Thanksgiving service at St Paul's Cathedral. He's tested positive for COVID. Buckingham Palace says the infection came to light during routine testing. It's understood Prince Andrew has seen the Queen in the last few days, but not since he tested positive. And police arrested several protesters who entered the ceremonial route on the Mall ahead of Trooping the Colour in central London today. A group calling itself Animal Rebellion were dragged out of the way by police as a military band marched along the path around 10 o'clock this morning. Met Assistant Commissioner Louisa Rolfe says the force is working hard to give people a safe and fun day in the capital. Now, more than 1,000 people have been honoured in the Queen's Jubilee Honours list. Medical staff who worked through the COVID pandemic are among those honoured, including NHS Director Professor Stephen Powis, who'll be made a Knight, and Chief Nursing Officer Ruth May, who's going to be made a Dame. The actor, Damian Lewis, has been made a CBE, and the crime writer Ian Rankin has been knighted on the Queen's Birthday Honours list, while former Northern Ireland First Minister and GBNews presenter Arlene Foster has been made a Dame.
Well, of course, this is a personal honour and I'm really delighted with it, but I hope it will be reflected back on the people of Fermanagh and South Tyrone who give me such support when I was their member. And indeed, as I say, as the first female First Minister, it's wonderful to have this acknowledgement.
Well, away from the Jubilee, in international news, President Zelensky of Ukraine says Russia now occupies a fifth of his country. The Ukrainian leader says 100 people are dying every day in fighting in the east of the country. That comes as British military intelligence says Russia now has control of most of the strategically important city of Severodonetsk. The United States now, a gunman who killed 4 people at a medical centre in Oklahoma City went there to kill a doctor he blamed for pain he experienced post-surgery. Tulsa police are saying Michael Lewis opened fire with an AR-15-style weapon, killing 2 doctors and 2 other people, as well as injuring several others. He also then killed himself and left a letter at the scene. The incident follows 2 mass shootings in the States, which have reopened a long-standing debate over tightening gun controls. Just lastly, the actor Johnny Depp has confirmed he'll join the singer Jeff Beck for the remainder of his UK tour. That comes after the actor won his multi-million-pound defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife Amber Heard. The jury unanimously found she acted with malice in 2018 when she claimed she was a victim of sexual violence. Miss Heard was separately awarded £1.6 million after jurors found Mr Depp's lawyer defamed her when he called her abuse claims a hoax. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Dewbs & Co. and Nana's in the chair.
Good afternoon. So this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Acquia. We are the People's Channel, and with me until 7, my panel, columnist at The Article and Contrarian Prize founder Ali Mirage, journalist and author Tessa Clark, and also comedian Dana Alexander. Well, I want to know your thoughts as ever, and you can always get in touch throughout the show, especially all your Jubilee pictures. You can send them to us by email, jubilee@gbnews.uk, or why not send us a tweet at GBNews. And can I also remind you to subscribe to our YouTube page? I was going to say channel. Well, somebody's written page on there. I wouldn't normally say that, channel. You can watch live or see the best bits on the channel when you search GB News. Now I can see why they did that. Right, so Queen Elizabeth II has been on the throne for 70 years, 840 months, 3,652 weeks. That's 25,000 days, 61,215 hours, and 36,792,000 minutes. Wow. Give or take, she's today celebrated the first day of her Platinum Jubilee. Our GB News team have been live from Buckingham Palace all day, and our royal reporter Cameron Walker is still there for us. So let's go over there and have a chat with him now, because I want to find out, Cameron, what has the atmosphere been like there today?
I mean, Nana, first of all, I absolutely love those stats. The Queen celebrating her Platinum Jubilee weekend. It's the first time ever we are celebrating in this country 70 years of service from our monarch. The crowds have been absolutely electric. There have been people camping out for days just to get a glimpse of the carriages and the horses going past them on the Mall towards Horse Guards Parade for trooping the colour. So the 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards was the regiment who were trooping their colour at Horse Guards Parade earlier today. That the Royal Colonel of the 1st Battalion Irish Guards is Prince William. Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, the Queen's son, took the royal salute on Her Majesty's behalf at Horse Guards. We know Her Majesty has had mobility issues and perhaps would have struggled slightly to get down to Horse Guards Parade. But also what's really interesting, Nana, is Harry and Meghan were spotted in the Major General's office watching that procession and that parade in Horse Guards Parade, very much out of sight, so not kind of attracting attention away from Her Majesty and her celebrations, but very much kind of worth noting. And actually what was really a lovely moment was on the way to Horse Guards Parades in the carriage, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's youngest two children, were sat beside each other, and Prince Louis, who's only 4 years old, was waving frantically at the crowds, was clearly very, very excited, and Charlotte very subtly kind of slapped his hand down as if to say, you're waving too frantically. So perhaps a bit of advice from an older sister there. But then, of course, we had Her Majesty on the balcony at Buckingham Palace to salute the troops as they came back to Buckingham Palace, accompanied by the Duke of Kent. Then she was joined by extended members and working members of the royal family on the balcony for the royal flypast. 70 aircraft flew over Buckingham Palace, 70 years of Her Majesty's reign. They're from the RAF, they're from the British Army and the Royal Navy as well. And again, Prince Louis perhaps slightly stole the show. He was putting his hands over his ears and kind of screaming as if to say it's too loud. But away from that, in the last couple of hours, Nana, we have heard that Prince Andrew has tested positive for coronavirus. The Duke of York, of course, he was not on the balcony, but he was due to attend the service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral tomorrow. He will no longer be doing that. It's understood he did actually see the Queen in the last couple of days, but we've been told that he's kind of been testing regularly and has not tested positive in the presence of the Queen. So we don't think there's any danger of Her Majesty testing positive again. But of course, it was a very controversial moment a couple of months ago where the Duke of for the Duke of Edinburgh's service of Thanksgiving back back in March for his life, Prince Andrew escorted Her Majesty down the aisle at Westminster Abbey, and that was seen as very controversial, and people were speculating whether or not he was going to do the same thing again tomorrow at St Paul's Cathedral, but clearly that's not going to be the case because he has tested positive and will no longer be there. But tonight, the Jubilee beacons are going to be lit. That is 3,000 beacons across the world, up and down the United Kingdom and across the globe in the 54 Commonwealth nations. The principal beacon is being lit here at Buckingham Palace in the form of a tree of trees, which is just to my left. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but that's happening tonight. And then we've got a whole weekend, bank holiday weekend, of celebrations for Her Majesty's 70 years of service, Nana.
Wow. Well, there's so much going on. Thank you so much, Cameron. I love that big 70 with the fly past. Wasn't that fabulous? My goodness, that's going to be a fantastic... so stay with us. We're going to have a fantastic Jubilee. Let me show you what else is coming up, though, on the celebrations. At 9:45 p.m, over 1,500 beacons will be lit throughout the United Kingdom. Tomorrow morning, a service of thanksgiving for the Queen's reign will be held at St Paul's Cathedral. Bell ringers across the UK and Commonwealth countries will take part in bell ringing activities across the Jubilee weekend. That's all to coincide with the service of Thanksgiving taking place in London at 11:30. On Saturday, the 4th of June, the Queen and members of the royal family will attend the Derby at Epsom. And on Sunday the 5th, from 2:30 p.m. to 5, the Platinum Jubilee pageant will take place. That'll be exciting because that'll be during my show as well, so you make sure you join me. Queen Elizabeth II is the only monarch the majority of us have ever known. But how would you say she compared with historical royals of the past? Is she the greatest monarch that this country has ever seen? Right, so let's see what my panel think of that. Joining me is Ali Mirage, Tessa Clark and also Dana Alexander. I'll start with you, Ali. Is she the best ever?
Well, I think certainly in the post-Victorian era she is, because Queen Victoria was the last monarch to really wield executive power, and the Queen is a constitutional monarch. So certainly in that era she is. If you look back further than that, Tom Holland, Dominic Sandbrook, both historians did a poll last year on this very question, and they found that actually King Athelstan, an Anglo-Saxon king who united Wessex and Mercia and pushed the Vikings out of Northumbria, actually topped the poll ahead of Elizabeth I, who clearly, obviously, repelled the Spanish Armada. So both of those were ranking ahead of Elizabeth II. But look, I'm a huge fan of the Queen. Absolutely faultless service for 7 decades. On her 14th Prime Minister, started with Churchill, ended up with Boris. I mean, God, heaven knows what she thinks of him, but anyway, the point is she is a utter professional and has conducted that with great aplomb.
Well, the other guy I've never heard of, she's great. And as for Boris, he doesn't even come into it. Dana, what do you think?
I would say, as far as British monarchs go, 100% you'd have to say that, especially when we talk about dismantling the colonies and everything else. But there was another poll when you were looking at monarchs across the world. She ranked third once again, the first being, was it Louis XIV?
Louis
and the second being Rama IX in Thailand. And I think he's probably the only other monarch I've ever seen that would be more beloved than the Queen internationally.
I've got that one. Yeah, what do you think then, Tessa?
Well, I'm a Republican, but, you know, you can't ignore the fact that 70 years of public service reigning is an amazing, great achievement. And her values of stoicism, of resilience, these fly in the face of our current woke culture. So to stand fast in the face of that is also a great achievement. Compared to, say, Queen Elizabeth I, I mean, you know, in a way, Queen Elizabeth I had more power to exercise and do good or bad. And actually, she stands on the shoulder of Queen Elizabeth I in a way, because she was a queen who decided to rule to end persecution of Protestants and Catholics and make herself, the monarch, something to adore and be divine. And although Queen Elizabeth II doesn't have quite the same powers, obviously, there's sort of sense that we should almost look up to the Queen as a sort of semi-divine figure. It's still there, I think, in our culture.
Well, also, I think the women do it better, frankly. I mean, looking at what we're saying. But, I mean, look, she took over at the tender age of just 25, you know, and she found that you know, King George VI died suddenly, and then she's there, suddenly she's the monarch. And it must be, for her, today must be an incredible day, because she must think and look back to that and think, crikey, if I'd known what I know now, You know,
well, look, and you look back, her dad didn't want the job, but he stepped up because his brother abdicated. And the Queen herself was thrust into it. She lost her dad at a very tender age, and that must have obviously had a profound impact on her life. But as she said at that particular point, be her life long or short, it will be devoted in the service of her people. And she has absolutely stayed true to that the whole way through. I mean, barely put a foot wrong. I mean, the only time I think she slightly misjudged the mood for about 2 days was on the when Diana died. But then she has also always had the ability to change tack where necessary and recognise the bigger picture, not only for what's right for the country, but also the longevity of the monarchy. So she's also very pragmatic.
Well, some people would say that there were two moments, actually, when Diana died, because obviously Diana was just incredible, wasn't she? And it was literally, I think across the world, there was a real sadness about what happened to her. But then there was that Andrew moment, wasn't there? People were saying that when she had Andrew standing walking by her, the press were making a big hoo-ha of that. Yeah. I personally didn't think that, you know, I think she should do what she likes. She's the Queen. If I was the Queen, I'd be like, just shut up, the lot of you, I'm going to do what I want. But some people would say that she put her foot wrong there. Dana, what would you say?
Well, what I noticed with her associations with Andrew after all of this controversy is the most of the time that you saw him and her together were at church. Yeah. So I think her devotion to, I guess she is the head of Church of England, but her devotion to her her religion and also the country. You have to remember, she started reigning at the age of 25. That speech that you referred to, of course, happened when she was 21 years old. So we have to consider she really didn't have a lot of freedom in her life. From the time she was a young girl, she was preparing to be monarch. And of course, after her uncle's abdication, you know, it changed the whole course of the entire family's life.
What do you think, Tess? Because she's you know, she's been quite incredible, hasn't she?
Well, as a human being, to have gone through that life that she's been through, and to stay sane in a way is, you know, amazing enough. I think that politically, there have been times when she was younger that there has been suggestion that she did behind the scenes make whispers about what she wanted to happen in different ways. So, you know, her power has got less, but it's still an amazing influence. After all, she sees the Prime Minister every week. What a privilege.
What, to see the Prime Minister every week?
Access to all those secrets and behind closed doors machinations is something that her family and herself are born into. Whether that should remain in a modern society, well, time will tell, won't it?
Well, we'll come to that towards the end to see that. Because, what do you think, though, the monarchy as an institution, in your view? We'll talk about Commonwealth and everything else.
I'm very supportive of the hereditary principle, actually, on the basis that I think if you are true to the actual mantra of service, it frees you from having to go and earn a living like the rest of us do, but it should be dedicated to the service of your country. And I think it provides that longevity. They're meant to be above the political fray. Tessa's mentioning the fact that it's a privilege for her to have heard from Prime Ministers. It's also a privilege for Prime Ministers to speak to her in utter confidence. The one person who will not leak from Downing Street, right, in an environment where you've got a Downing Street that's leakier than Richard Nixon's White House, you know that if you speak to the Queen, that is in complete confidence, apart from, obviously, her corgis could leak something, but they never have. And the Queen has also, she's got a sense of humour. Remember when she was at the opening...
The cake cutting, I think.
Indeed,
right?
And also at the opening of the Olympics when she did the Daniel Craig little skit. I thought that was lovely. And I think the Queen is someone who also knows that it's a period of transition for the monarchy. If you go back 10 years to the Diamond Jubilee, 72% of the public supported it, 62% now. She knows that there's a period of transition, but she's leaving it in good hands.
Yeah, well, she's done well because, you know, everyone's thinking, God, when she, you know, obviously when she decides to give the throne to her son, you know, a lot of people are not happy with that because they're thinking, oh, could we just skip Charles? I like it. I'm OK with Charles, really, to be honest with you. I was very sad with the whole situation with Diana and Camilla, but then, you know, the two of them, Camilla, even though she was one of the most hated people in this country for some time because everyone loved Diana so much, and it was a bit much, you know, if you're with somebody, then, you know, that thing going on, and I don't like any of that. For me, I'm not happy with that. But having said that, you know, Diana's no longer with us, so I'd rather he was happy than sad.
I would agree. I mean, if you look at the divorce rates across the world, I think it's nice that she's actually had the ability to keep changing and understanding, you know, how to preserve the culture and the legacy of the British Crown whilst understanding that the world is changing and becoming a little bit more lenient with things like divorce.
It is true, isn't it? And the other thing, she's been through quite a lot. So she's always very stoic. So she lost her mother and her sister very close together, so really close together. I mean, she's had to deal with so many different things, and yet she's managed to maintain this wonderful stoicism and the grace and gravitas that a lot of the other royals...
And mystique.
And
like
mystique,
not letting it all hang out in public,
yeah,
right? Keeping some mystique. That is what the institution actually thrives on. The problem is that too many of the royals, I think, we may come on to this, sort of talk too much about their private lives, I think.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you what, should we find out what sorry, Tess, I've just seen you there and thought, what about Tess? What does she think about all this?
Well, you know, maybe the Queen is the last of the true royals in the sense of the traditional stoic, keep-it-to-yourself royals, and now we're seeing really a band of celebrities. I mean, they are, you know...
Well, not the actual ones, though, not the people who've been brought up with it.
It's quite amazing, actually, since the wedding of Kate and William, it's almost like there's royal news every day. Whereas before that, it was actually quite quiet.
Do you think? I think we had royal news all the time, but it was done differently, in that they were sort of hounded in a way, and they just, I don't know, I think the royals seem to be more in charge of their own media, and then before it seemed like the press were more in charge of it.
Well, before, you see, the grandsons were younger. They were at school and university, so they were protected. The press sort of had a hands-off approach. But the moment they started into adult life and then got married, it's been very, very intense, maybe too intense. There are other things going on in the world apart from what the royal family are up to.
But everybody loves a little bit of gossip, don't they? I mean, come on, Harry and Meghan, can you resist? Right, well, let's see what you've been saying. We'll be talking about that in a moment, not just them, but the others. You've been sending in your opinions and your thoughts and your pictures. Here is Gilly's homemade crown. Look at that. There you go. Where is it? Oh, there, down the bottom there. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Very nice, very nice.
Is that a cake?
No, is it on a cake? It's on a cushion. It looks like she's got some sort of felt or something underneath it. Let's have a look at Roger's giant flag in Wolverhampton. That's nice, isn't it? Make a nice blanket or something, or nice. I'd like maybe a rug like that. I think that'd be nice.
So long as that's his flat downstairs as well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a look. Bernadette says we're celebrating tomorrow by having a party in the park. Darren sent us a message. He said, I spent the last Jubilee stationed abroad. I can't put it into words what today means to me and my daughters. Lovely. Well, have a lovely time, Darren. It sounds good, doesn't it? Well, listen, coming up after the break, we're going to discuss the royals' relationship with the media, also the press. Are you scrutinised? Do you think they're scrutinised fairly, or does the press give them a hard time?
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices. With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome. We are the People's Channel, GB News. I'm Nana Akweer, and with me till 7, my panel, columnist at the Article and Contrarian Prize founder Ali Mirage, journalist and author Tessa Clark, and comedian Dana Alexander. Now, it can hardly have escaped your notice that, as a whole, the British press is full of love and admiration for the Queen and has had for many years on her wonderful service as our head of state. However, it's also fair to say that other members of the royal family have hit the headlines for all the wrong reasons during her reign. Now, the very public breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage, the family's response to Diana's death, and more recently, Prince Andrew's friendship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And then, of course, there's Meghan and Harry, their now infamous Monathon with Oprah Winfrey. But how do we assess the media's relationship with the royal family? Are they scrutinised fairly, or does the press give them a hard time? Let's see. Now, Tessa, you wrote a book about them. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think it's so much that the media are giving the royals a hard time. I think the royals are giving the media far too hard a time. I mean, Harry is currently suing Associated Newspapers. His wife won a privacy case against the Mail on Sunday and Mail Online.
And that was after the letter that she wrote to her dad.
That's right. And you could ask, well, doesn't her father have a right to free speech after all the big discussion against his character? So I would say that, certainly those two are really intent on restricting what the press and the people can know about and discuss. They just want a nice PR, and to make money out of it. But for us, we need free speech. We should be in a democracy, and they should know about it. And we should know about what we want to discuss, that they shouldn't be controlling that at all.
What do I have to say? Well, I don't know. It just seems like it depends on who's speaking, right? Because just earlier you slated Meghan for her Oprah interview.
Yeah,
but it seems like as soon as her father wants to open his mouth, everybody has a camera in front of his face, right?
Her father?
Meghan's father, right?
Well, no, because, I mean, not everyone. I mean, look, he opens his mouth and he will also be on camera like she'll be on camera. I don't really see what...
I think I see a little bit more of Meghan's father than I see of Meghan, and it seems like people are... Yeah, really, I do. What other interview has she given? After the Oprah interview was one interview.
So you're going to let that one go? We'll let the Oprah interview...
I'm not... Listen, she said her truth. She's allowed to do that.
Absolutely. There were
truth is relative, right? There's always three versions of the truth, right? Mine, yours, and the truth.
Well, no, but there is the truth. So, for example, saying you married when you weren't married by the Archbishop beforehand, which would have made him, which if he had done that would have broken laws. That wasn't true, was it? Also saying that the reason that
is that a big lie? I mean, it's not as big as Andrew's, is it? No, he doesn't seem to be catching nearly as much fire as her.
Andrew got a lot of fire, and
not as much.
I'm telling you now that Andrew got a lot of fire, and he's actually had his titles taken away from him, which is more than Harry and Meghan, who are still trading on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Ali.
Yeah, look, I think certain members of the royal family have been their own worst enemies, quite frankly. I think, look, the whole Prince Charles Camilla situation at the time, I mean, you could argue whether it should ever been... he should ever got married to Diana in the first place, right? But that was a different era.
Yeah, that was unfair.
It was, to a degree. And I'm actually a big supporter of Prince Charles because I think he is someone who has been a contrarian and an outrider on certain issues like the environment, on making links with different religious communities. He's very knowledgeable, very well-read, extremely well-travelled. He's, I think, a fundamentally decent person. But look, this sort of carry-on and soap opera that happens, you've had the whole Andrew fiasco, which has really damaged the credibility of the royal family. And you look at some of the stats now, and particularly amongst younger members of the public, 18 to 24-year-olds, only 30% or so support the royal family. So this is a problem. And I do think...
Oh, I don't know about that. You said that and the stats and all that. But, statistics, there are lies, and whatever. Statistics, and basically, you could probably get the stats to say almost anything. I'll tell you what, I asked my daughter, she's 13. I said, what do you think of the royal family? She said, oh, William and Kate, I love the Queen, and William and Kate are amazing. So I think that there's a disconnect with Charles, but as for William and Kate, I think you'll find a lot of young people like them. Let's ask Tess that. Do you think?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of sort of media attention on the way that Harry and Meghan relate to the press, but very little is said about Prince William. Prince William only last year said that he'd never, ever wanted the BBC Panorama interview with his mother to be aired ever again.
I remember
this is a piece of national history. This is where the wife of the future king was putting her points of view across as she was going through
but
a
you
very
do understand,
public
Tessa,
divorce.
why
And I think to
yeah.
demand that somehow and suggest that a piece of history should be censored and taken off the airwaves,
I think
it's a very anti-democratic
Well, I
point.
think it's too...
I understand
yeah, but
emotionally why he might...
No,
do
it's
that,
not just emotionally.
but democratically...
No, Tessa, sorry, it's not just emotionally. Look, I agree with you that I don't think it should never be aired again. However, the reason why he feels so strongly about it is the manner in which that interview was procured by Martin Bashir, right? That is the issue here. It's like the absolute trauma he put his mother through, the sort of the lies that were told in order to get that interview and obtain that interview. And frankly, Martin Bashir traded off the back of that for the rest of his career. Now, obviously, is suffering the consequences ex post. So it's understandable that William feels very, very hurt about that and angry. And I would, if it was my mother who had been tricked into an interview like that. Now, you could argue that she wanted to give her a side of the story anyway.
No, but
right?
well, I would say that I'm
argue.
going to argue that because she apparently it was said that she said she would have given that story anyway.
But perhaps.
So she wanted to give her side of the story.
Perhaps.
Martin Bashir used whatever. The problem is the way he did that. But the actual fact is that she wanted the story
for a
to get out
BBC
there.
journalist should have known better.
So for a BBC journalist at that point, I would say that's totally inappropriate. But she did want to get the story out. It got the story out, and I thought that.
Well,
was
it was a war. Indeed, it was a war at the time, right? Because you had Charles with the Jonathan Dimbleby interview, you had Diana with Martin Bashir. It was really unedifying at the time, really, and it damaged the royal family a lot. But the royal family, under the tutelage of the Queen, has always had this ability to navigate and bounce back and keep the show on the road.
But are they fair game, though? Because, look, we're paying for them.
They are fair game. They are fair game.
We're paying for them.
They're public figures. Of course they're fair game.
What about those that say they want privacy and then they don't really use privacy and then they trade on the back?
You can't have it both ways.
So what do you think, Dana? Because I wanted to come back to you with the Harry and Meghan situation. Because, OK, they wanted privacy, but then you're going to Netflix, you're going to Spotify, you're trading on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex title, aren't you? All the foundations, but you're using that as your brand to try and build your own purse.
She's writing children's books. If she doesn't want to be hounded in the bushes in front of her house like anybody else, Diana made some of the worst complaints about being hounded by the press. In fact, Harry is still traumatized by how hounded she was by the press to her death, actually.
So when you actually look at that, Dana, come on.
Well, that's
come on. I mean,
come on. History
come on. They want a private life.
At the time, she was secretly talking to Andrew Morton, and she denied she was talking to anyone about her private life and her divorce. And you know, obviously it is very sad as human beings, as a family, but I'm not talking about that side of things. I'm talking about the fact that we, as the public, need to know what is going on.
It's history.
By people who have so much power and influence.
Yeah, but look, Harry and Meghan.
And think that they can suddenly say certain BBC programmes can be taken off the air. That is not acceptable.
Look, Harry and Meghan can do what they want. If they want to, as adults, withdraw from the royal family, that is their prerogative. I was sad about it at the time because I think Harry was very popular. I think Meghan was welcome with open arms.
She was at
really
the beginning.
welcome. Remember their wedding? Their wedding was fantastic.
I punched the air. I was driving and I shouldn't have taken both hands off the wheel. I know it's dangerous. But when I heard that he was with a woman of colour, I went, yeah!
But look at the wedding. Look at the wedding. She was walked down the aisle by Prince Charles. This is how far the royal family have come. Would you ever have imagined that?
Dana's raising her eyebrows. I want to hear what she has to say.
I mean, look at how it's...
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Her story. The minute she opens her mouth, she is slated immediately. And it just seems like everybody gets different treatment. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think so. Hang on. You're not thinking... Let's go back to Camilla. She was treated horrendously. Let's go back to Fergie.
She was the mistress.
She was treated... Yeah, well, she should do that. I didn't think that was good either. Fergie was treated horrendously.
Because she sold secrets of her husband to the press.
Exactly. Meghan was treated horrendously. They've all been treated the same way.
But Meghan hasn't behaved as awfully as Camilla come on now.
She has. Look, at the beginning, she was lovely.
Because she said she got married when she had it?
No, because she just... Listen, I loved her until she started telling us all how we should go with the environment and everything, having taken 10 or 11 private
But it's okay for Charles to tell us how to do the environment.
No, in a short space of time, literally within a couple of weeks, she was saying that she was taking private jets. Then
Does Charles take private jets?
And then, look, Charles has not sat down on a global interview with Oprah, saying I'm leaving the royal family, to then try and trade off all the royal family stories and secrets. And then he's not gone and said, I'm going to write a book, potentially after the Queen passes. I mean, it's horrible.
It seems like she's not allowed to defend herself.
But it's not just that they want a private life, right? It's that they actually want to have it on the basis of trading off their titles and doing Netflix deals, right? And also, by the way, if you want to go away, then that's fair enough. You're adults, you can do it. However, then please don't, Harry, give advice to your brother and your father who have got a public duty to continue and to discharge, right? Giving them advice about their mental health and talking about how they're trapped. I mean, there's no need for that. If you've decided to resolve from your responsibilities, that's fine. It's up to you. But don't trade off your Duke and Sussex titles. I think that's completely wrong. And also, don't lecture us about service at the Invictus Games, right? And look, Meghan's a brilliant speaker. Together, they could have done a lot for this country and for the royal family, but they decided not to. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. But please don't lecture us, the rest of us, on our mental health and about how much you're doing for service. When what you want to do is to monetize the fact that you're public figures, but you don't want to have the responsibility of public service that comes with being a member of the royal family.
And that's what the Queen demonstrates so efficiently and amazingly. And she is the example. And that's why I love seeing William and also Catherine, because they hold themselves with dignity and
they stay quiet.
And they don't stay quiet, because Catherine she's what is it, the gynecological charity and gynecological charity, and also the midwifery charities and things like that. She gets behind all these different things with passion.
But no, I was just going to say one thing. I think, look, I'm not here to advise William. William's got plenty of courtiers who can do that. But I think, removing bowing and curtsying, I wouldn't go down that road. The whole point of the royal family is exactly.
I like all that.
Exactly. It's the mystique. It's the respect to the office that you hold, right? To the position you hold. We're not bowing to William and Catherine. We're bowing to the fact, or curtsying to the fact, that we respect the fact that they will potentially be heads of state. They're members of the royal family. You start removing that mystique, I think it's a thin end of the wedge, and I think William personally has got it wrong on that.
Well, no, maybe he's moving with the times.
He's trying to, but I disagree with him.
I like bowing and curtsying if that was what flies now, but that doesn't really fly anymore. And I think it's a reaction to the Jamaica trip. No, it slightly stinks of the colonialism and all that, and it doesn't really work out really when they start doing that. But then, having said that, the way the colonies and all that, I know there were bad elements of it, but there have also been some good things that have come out of it. But you've been sending in your opinions and your pictures. Here's what Margaret's view is of the Jubilee. Oh, that's nice, Margaret. Ooh, is that Central London? Oh, is that Trafalgar Square or something? What is that? It's lovely.
It's just outside Buckingham Palace.
Oh, it's outside the palace.
One
part. Trafalgar Square. I don't know.
But that was also packed, by the way.
Yeah, I can imagine it was. Adrian from Fife is enjoying the day in his garden. Oh, Adrian, that's nice. You need some chairs, though, man. I love some chairs. A beer. Jack says, I've been attending the trooping for over 40 years, and today was the busiest I've ever seen. I couldn't get into St James's Park. Lovely to hear a young group of people singing the national anthem. Isn't it just? Yeah. I actually really love that. Paul says, she is the queen of the world. She's amazing, isn't she? She's an example. She's an example of how you can carry yourself. And as someone who has chosen to remain anonymous says, please tell Dana that there is only one version of the truth.
GBNews. I bet you that's the version, right?
Well, not really. It's a more Meghan version.
No, I think if there was only one version of the truth, there would be no courts. Give me a break. People have different recollections. People see things differently. If you look at this phone, if I look at the phone this way, I would tell you that this is a long, straight object. If you look at this same phone the other way, you'd tell me it was rectangular and flat. I mean, perspective matters.
Well, if I was to say that I was married by the Archbishop...
Is that all you got?
Wait.
I mean, we spent so much time on this. You haven't even mentioned Andrew. It's so funny.
I listened to your phone analogy. I didn't interrupt. Okay. Wait until you finished. I got to the end of it. And the only reason you're interrupting me is because you know that you're not going to sound... You're going to sound wrong here. But if I was to tell you that I was married 3 days before by the Archbishop, which I wasn't, and it turns out that I wasn't, and then when I was married, then I said that I was, then that's not true, is it? So that's a lie. So that's one version of the truth. And that's my version of the truth, and that'd be the Archbishop's, but Meghan's was different. But anyway, let's see, coming up, will the Jubilee bring the Commonwealth together? That's what we're asking. Stay tuned. This week, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese appointed a Minister of the Republic. This position got announced the day before the Jubilee. It's the latest development for countries such as Jamaica and the Dominican Republic tearing away from the Commonwealth. However, recently the Commonwealth has been coming together. For example, we see New Zealand and so on and so forth. Stay with us. We'll talk about more of that after the break.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations get underway, I'll bring you the results of an explosive royal opinion poll of the British public that spells bad news for Meghan, Charles and Camilla.
Plus, Prince of Wales biographer Tom Bower and royal editor Robert Jobson bring you coverage of this historic moment for the monarchy. And there's unfiltered opinion from political firebrand Anne Widdecombe as usual, social media sensation Zuby too, and my superstar panel, the Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So if you just joined me, where have you been? This is GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Nana Acquare. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, it's our fabulous Jubilee celebration, and we'll be doing that throughout every day, all the way through till Sunday. Make sure you join me on my show between 4 and 6. More celebrations here on GB News. And with me until 7, my panellist, columnist, the Article and Contrarian Prize founder Ali Mirage, journalist and author Tessa Clark, and comedian Dana Alexander. Right, so this week, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese appointed a Minister of the Republic. Now, this position got announced the day before the Jubilee, and it's the latest development for countries such as Jamaica and the Dominican Republic tearing away from the Commonwealth. However, recently, the Commonwealth has been coming together. For example, we saw New Zealand. It was getting closer than ever in defence. Canada showing its royal colours during Charles's visit, and Rwanda stepping up to help us with the asylum seeker crisis. Will today's festivities cap it off? Will the Jubilee bring the Commonwealth back together? Well, let's find out. What do you think, Ali? Do you think the Commonwealth this whole celebration is a great way of merging everything?
Well, I think the Commonwealth is in a period of transition. There are 54 countries in the Commonwealth. The Queen is still head of state of 15 of them, but there are a number of republics in there and former colonial states that don't have the Queen as head of state. I think the Commonwealth has still got a role to play. We know that certain countries might become republics. We know that Andrew Holness in Jamaica wants it to happen. Anthony Albanese, you mentioned the new Australian Prime Minister, wants it to happen as well. But look, the Commonwealth, in an environment where you've got the UN, which is a pretty defunct organisation in many ways, Commonwealth is bound by common language. They can work on things like trade, on the environmental issues, etc. And, you know, you remember last year at the G7 summit in Cornwall, actually. In Cornwall, where Boris Johnson was talking about setting up this new group of 10 democratic nations, the D10.
That's the one meeting they went to, no social distancing or masks?
Well, this is the one where the Queen was actually at the Eden Project with them and everything else. And look, if you've got the Commonwealth, it's something I think to cherish. And you've also got countries like Rwanda and Mozambique that weren't actually ex-colonial states that are actually members of the Commonwealth. So they obviously see some...
Well, that's the thing. But a lot of people, I don't think, realise that Rwanda was part of the Commonwealth, and they're saying, oh, you can't send migrants there, but yet it's part of the Commonwealth, and it's the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and also it wasn't a colonial... It wasn't colonised by the UK. So the point is that there is some value in this, and I do think in an environment where certain international organisations are failing, it is a place where you can bring heads of state together to discuss thorny issues in a family of nations.
Well, you can do that in many different environments, but I think what's gradually emerging is, for example, last year Barbados became a republic, did not want the Queen as head of state. Despite that, Prince Charles was made head of the Commonwealth, bit of a shoo-in. That can't carry on, surely. One of the values of the Commonwealth is not democracy. Nobody votes for the head of the Commonwealth. And I think that, along with the Windrush scandal, has suddenly entered the debate where, I think that Commonwealth countries will slowly start moving away from the monarchy.
Dana?
Yeah, no, sadly, no. I think this is pretty much a British holiday. Even as a Canadian, I asked my mother, who was born in Britain herself, and there is not one party she knows of happening.
One party in Canada?
Not even one.
Really? Because of the...
And she's British.
Really?
So it's not. Yeah, I think we pay attention to it on the news.
Have many friends who who are into the Queen and stuff. But
well,
I'm
just
sure
living
in Canada, there'll be lots of celebrations.
I grew up in Canada my whole life until I was 30, and I can't recall one Jubilee celebration in my entire life.
But that's only because the Jubilee is like 70 years. It comes at different times.
The Diamond Jubilee, of course, was 10 years ago, and then there's one every 10 years. But no, it's not really a big celebration in Canada. There's mention, of course, of it in the news, but people aren't particularly royalist.
Really?
Yeah.
But doesn't Canada still see value in the Commonwealth as another international organisation where heads of state can come together? They are bound by a common history. There is a bond there. They speak the same language. It's not an alternative to the UN or the G7 or the G20, depending on where you are. But it also allows larger states like Canada, the UK, India, etc., emerging powers as well, to come together around the table.
Things like that?
Sorry?
Visa-free travel and things like that. That's probably the most handy when it comes to the citizens. Trade as well, trades, investment. These are more governmental issues. I think when it comes to the people, we don't really hear too much about. We hear stories on the news here and there. I think Diana was probably the most celebrated royal, at least in my lifetime. And I think there's definitely great respect for the Queen, but I don't think that there's a overall sentiment of royalism.
So do you think that in the end what we'll have is the Queen or Prince Charles no longer head of state in different countries, but we'll keep the idea of the Commonwealth? Do you think that will be the way it goes?
Well, but maybe, but Tessa, just on the point about Prince Charles, my understanding was that it was the Commonwealth heads of government that actually came together to actually want Prince Charles in 2018 to take over as that. That's what I thought.
Yes, but it was after quite a lot of controversy that maybe he shouldn't. And I think that, yes, Prince Charles, in a way, won the argument that time. But can he win again? Can the next monarch really make that claim? I don't think so. I actually went to the Australian Commonwealth Heads of State meeting, and I was really surprised to find a huge delegation from China there. So of course, yes, there's many different ways that Britain can lead the way in its history to bring countries together for trade, for economy, for political reasons, all sorts of things. But I think that there is a lot of disgruntlement now amongst the people. That the heads of all these Commonwealth countries have to answer to their people, and they are starting to question whether things should be hereditary, whether the royals have a role in their societies, especially when some of their governments might be more corrupt, and they want accountability of their leaders.
I don't think... if I look at this, I think sometimes we, as the British public, don't give our monarchy enough credibility in itself, so then when others are looking on, they look at this country and go, well, if they don't even want their monarchy, then... And I think we as a country need to sort of either show full respect to our monarchy so that others looking on will also respect them, or we need to just give them a wide berth and sort of look...
We don't actually get enough news from Commonwealth countries. We don't actually get the reports very often of the riots there, of the disgruntlement.
And find out
it's all very well having a Governor-General imposed upon you, but people actually do want democracy in these countries.
But
They're
that's going to
crying out
happen.
for
I
it.
don't
And
think
that's where there is
but they are going to have sovereignty. I think the Queen is quite resigned to the fact that she was very upset about Barbados leaving. They can't stop it. They know it's going to happen. I think there's a difference between the Queen remaining head of state of the 15 states of the Commonwealth, she still is, and the Commonwealth as an organisation having some utility. It's a different thing, in my view.
Yeah, and in my view, Commonwealth as a sort of organisation and unit is a wonderful construct, but if you look at other units that are similar, like NATO and the UN, actually, sometimes they start to be a little bit impotent, because look at NATO. I mean, NATO don't seem to be doing very much at all. Look at the UN. I mean, you know, and then in the end, and how will it work? I think ultimately each country within it has to give equal money or whatever. I mean, you look at Trump insisted that people should give their GDP, their 2% of GDP to NATO. Lots of countries aren't doing it, and I think it'll ultimately break apart.
Well, they got caught out. They got caught out, didn't they, Nana, on NATO? But you look at NATO right now, and Turkey is now trying to block Sweden and Finland acceding to NATO because it's saying,
they can't, though.
Well, they're trying to, because they have got their own issues with Kurdish separatists in their own country, and they're saying the quid pro quo for us voting for these guys to come into NATO is you back out and don't interfere with our internal affairs. That is exactly what Erdogan is saying.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think, final word to you, Dana.
I would say that the Commonwealth only is going to have an ability to survive if it continues to reform, which it has been doing.
And it will carry on reforming. Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, let's really have a look at what everyone's been saying and find out what their thoughts are as well. Because royal superfans have been flying from all over the world to join the celebrations this weekend. Many even camped out in London as long as 48 hours before the Platinum Jubilee to take their place for today's festivities. Here are some of the other efforts that some superfans have gone to. Right, OK, so here you've got model makers at Legoland Windsor. They created new miniatures of the royal family in the Jubilee celebrations using over 18,000 bricks. Look at that, they're serious with it. Wow. Then you've got Margaret Tyler. She's a super fan who's collected over 12,000 royalty-themed objects in the past 40 years. Wow. Her room dedicated to Diana includes carpet from Lanesborough Hotel, which Diana walked on in 1995. And if you are listening on the digital radio, you can check us out on YouTube or download the app and have a look at the images on the screen at the moment. Cake enthusiast Lara Mason has created a life-size cake of one of the royal corgis. That is a cake, by the way. You've got to take a look on the app. It looks realistic. It's not. Good. You can actually eat it. I don't know which bit I'd want to eat of that. I mean, there'll be some bits that are slightly more unsavoury than others. And then Lara followed this with a life-size cake of Her Majesty, created in 5 days. That is you've got to have a look at this, honestly. Seriously, download the GBNews app, go and take a look at this. It is the Queen. She's there, and I think she's edible.
Amazing.
It's a bit much. Manager at the Bramley Farm pub commemorated the Jubilee by making a throne entirely out of roast dinner ingredients, including roast potatoes, broccoli and Yorkshire pudding. I bet that stunk. That's done. Broccoli Yorkshire pudding. And this one here, Crisp and Fry, a chip shop in Wales, went viral after creating blue and red fish and chips in honour of the Platinum Jubilee. Wow. So what lengths would you be going to celebrate this weekend? Dana, are you doing anything?
I'm working. I'm here, I'm working. Yeah, I'm here right now, and I'll be working again tomorrow night. I haven't been invited to any Jubilee celebrations, so I guess I'm just going to do this.
OK, well, that's good. What about you, Ellie?
Well, I saw the fly past. I was at Wagamama's in Victoria earlier on a rooftop. I saw the fly past. I'm DJing at a Jubilee party this evening. Yeah, I'm playing a house music DJ set later this evening. And I'm going to the Derby on Saturday. I was hoping to see the Queen there, but I'm not sure she's coming. And I will be in the city tomorrow. And I really think the great thing about the Queen going to the city tomorrow, having lunch with the Lord Mayor, is she's showing also the respect to the city that it deserves.
Tessa?
I'm going to 2 things. I'm going to a Republican bootlickers ball on Friday in East London, and I'm also taking my son to the Village Jubilee Street Party.
Oh, that's nice. Well, I'm going to be here all weekend, so you better stay with me. I've also got a street party there in my street, so that'll be quite exciting. Well, you've been sending in your opinions. Alex says it's just a pity 2 members of the royal family didn't have the same loyalty of service to their country as the Queen has. I wonder which ones those are. Chilton says, Nana, I worry for Charles and William if they don't stand up to Harry and Meghan's unacceptable behaviour. I have no idea what that means for the next generation. And at one GBNews viewers' decorations in Lincolnshire, oh, yes, wonderful. George on email says, I'm moving home to England next year, but for now, I'm in Texas and I'm celebrating by myself with the coronation chicken sandwiches and Victoria Sponge on Sunday. Stephen on Twitter says Queen Victoria was the greatest monarch ever. No argument. Well, I'm not going to argue with it. I'm going to say thank you very much to my panel, column author Tessa Clark and also comedian Dela Alexander. I'll be back tomorrow at 4. Nigel Farage is on the way.
UK will be wet for parts of northern England and Wales, plus Northern Ireland, drier elsewhere. Here's the details. Zooming into the southwest of England, and it will be a dry and bright start to the day here, with plenty of early sunshine on offer, especially towards the west. A little early mist and fog is possible in the southeast, quickly clearing. Otherwise, it's a dry and bright morning with sunny spells. Dry and bright across South Wales too, with sunny spells. The odd mist and fog patch is also likely here, especially in the valleys. There's a significant change in the weather as we head north to northwest England.